I'm now going to demonstrate next generation protection and endpoint detection and response by using a real-world scenario to demonstrate how Defender picks up alerts, how they can be triaged within Security Center, and what live response actions you can take to secure your assets and infrastructure. One of the reasons the SOC runs 24/7 is that threat actors can strike at any time. You can be working away creating a demo and you receive an email. Now, and whilst this isn't the most sophisticated of phishing emails, you'd be surprised how often I've seen users fall for something very similar. Using an external file sharing platform, as well as having a zipped file to host the content, are common ways that threat actors try and bypass our defenses. Defender, of course, has controls to prevent against these items, but for the purpose of this demo, I've switched them off. Now, if we open our file and try and run it, as with the ASR, the file becomes blocked. Even opening the file doesn't allow us to run it within the environment. Defender has stepped in and prevented it from running. This is the same exploit that I used previously. I just wanted to demonstrate a different delivery mechanism and the fact that Defender will still pick it up even if it's in your temp file or your downloads. As before, clicking into the alert within Defender allows us to see the alert story and the breakdown of all the events that Defender believes are related. We can see all the testing I did with the ASR files, the original time I ran the PowerShell script, and the fact that this new event occurred from a different folder location and used notepad.exe to try and execute it. If I come to the top here, I'm able to run an antivirus scan on the device. This is a useful precaution to pick up any other flagged files or malicious content that could have been missed. Once you've submitted that, you can check into the Action Center to see if the scan kicked off successfully. We can also come back up to the desktop breakdown here and initiate some further action. We can isolate the device, which would prevent any outbound network connection. We can also restrict app execution, which essentially means any software or application that is not signed by Microsoft cannot run. This is an incredibly useful feature. Essentially, if an end user tries to interact with anything that isn't signed by Microsoft, they receive the following pop-up. Blocking access to unsigned applications or third-party pieces of software in this way is incredibly beneficial and is a really strong move against things like ransomware, where they try and gain escalation and persistence through the use of unsigned scripts and other processes. Now, if these other processes don't appear in the alert story, you can come to the device timeline, which is a step-by-step look at every single event that occurred on that device. You can specify a look back period that you want to use. You can work your way through and flag particular events of interest for you to either look at next time or to get one of your colleagues to dig into at another point. It gives you a really good idea of everything that's occurred on the device, and it's really useful for working your way back through, finding that initial access piece, finding the root cause of an event, and allowing you to understand why it occurred and where it came from. For this particular incident, I can see exactly where I downloaded the original zip file from. I can see any events that were triggered alongside it. I can also create a stop and quarantine rule for that particular file based on its file hash, its path, and other indicators. So if that file happened to be seen anywhere else in the environment, it would be stopped and it would be quarantined. Really, really useful for things like sustained email campaigns where users might have interacted and downloaded the content, they just haven't opened the original file and triggered the payload inside, so it hasn't flagged up in an alert. Another really useful tool that's provided to you by Defender are the live response session capabilities. You're able to terminal into a device, and using a set list of commands, you can move through the device environment and find out further information on files and perform remediation actions. Here you can see I've used cd and directory commands to bounce through the environment to the downloads folder and understand exactly what exists in the folder. I've asked for more file info on the PowerShell test script that was found within. It gives me information on the metadata, file hash, bits of information like that. I can also use it to check for any jobs running, any scheduled tasks that have been created, any changes to registry keys, common things that occur during an exploit you can search for really, really quickly. It makes things a lot smoother, especially when you're in the midst of investigation in an incident that might be affecting multiple devices at the same time. As an example, myself and a colleague responded to a ransomware incident. It was affecting multiple devices in our client's environment. We were able, using live response, to terminal into the devices, and we could see line by line as the ransomware was moving through the directory and trying to encrypt files. We were able to upload remediation packages, download files, block content, and do all the actions we needed to help respond to that threat in real time. It's an incredibly useful tool and highly flexible in the right circumstances. Once you've performed live response and remediated any threats as you deem it appropriate, you can come into here and you can manage the alert by adding a closing classification and any comments. This is really useful for auditing purposes. For example, every quarter, you and your team could come back, you could review all of the alerts that you've received in that quarter and better understand the threat against your environment and the most common threats that you're exposed to. That way, you give yourselves direction and understand where you need to apply yourselves in terms of your security roadmap and the security controls that you enforce to better protect your environment using real statistics and not guesswork.